Yeah, cool. That works. Thank you very much. Hi there. So my name is Eilidh Troup, and I'm here to tell you about an open source device that I'm using to treat my eyesight. So this is a device to treat hemianopia. I suffered a stroke 2.5 years ago and lost half my sight, so half my field of vision. And it's not a disorder of the eyes, but the brain. So it's a common side effect of stroke, or can be caused by brain damage. And it means that one side of the brain isn't processing the vision from one half of the world. So what that kind of looks like is you look at something, look straight at something, and you only see half of it. You're not processing anything from the other half of the world. So in the hospital, I ordered a plate of macaroni cheese, looked at it, moved my head, and then realized like half of it's vegetables. So that's what the experience of it is like. It's more common than I might have realized. So it's estimated that it affects over 200,000 people in the UK, which is about 1 in 300 people. So recovering from the stroke, I was able to do physiotherapy exercises and make a really good physical recovery, but there didn't seem to be anything available to help retrain my brain to see again. So I started looking into it and found a science paper called Ameliorating Hemianopia with Multisensory Training. And what this turned out to be was the idea that if you stimulate the brain using light and sound, that multisensory input activates more of the brain and it can relearn how to see again. The results from the paper were super promising. They only tried it on 2 people, but they both got a good amount of visual field recovery. Then I looked at the paper, all excited to try it myself. And the specification is to flash a bright light and make a burst of white noise and repeat every 2 to 4 seconds with randomness. And it gives a list of parts, the LED strip, Arduino speaker. So I got them all and then remembered that I'm only a software engineer and flashing a LED is about as much as I'd ever done with electronics. But fortunately, it turns out my brother-in-law here knows electronics and had played around with some things before, and he made Mr. Flashy BP. Oops. So this device I have here. So I'll just give you a quick live demo. Oh. So that's what it does. It's a very bright light, which I can just see very blurrily on this side now, with the noise as well. There we go. So that's Mr. Flashy BP. I was going to show you a video, but you've seen the real life thing. Some of my early results from trying this out were quite promising in that, I've got a pointer here, the stars mark where I had the light relative to the center of where I was looking at my vision. And this in particular up there was a bit of new eyesight that maps really well onto where I was using this. So how I use it is for about an hour a week, I sit and focus on one point, have this off at a fixed point into my blind side, and just focus and let that happen there and hope my brain's taking it in. And yesterday I got another eyesight test, and they said I had a 5% improvement in my vision since a couple of years ago, and they really hadn't expected to improve at all. They expected it only to improve for the first year after the stroke and then stabilize. So at the top is before and the bottom after for each of the eyes. And there's like this, sorry, the white is where I can see and the black is where I can't. This is showing that I can perceive of like a bright light shone on that side. And then the bits where it's white is where I can really see like normal again in these patches. And this spreading out here is quite interesting. It's like, that's super useful for not walking into things, to be able to see the path in front of you quite well. So I've been using this device for, well, since August, and I'm going to continue doing the training and hope that I continue to see further improvement. Yeah, so that's pretty much my talk. The technical side of things, yeah, it does use an Arduino and the LED. Like the first hurdle I fell at was all the introductory stuff. Just gets a low-powered LED, and if you want the strips, they have to have a separate power source, and then that needed a special switch transformer-y thing. Yeah, so it was great to have some help from someone who, well, to hand the project over to someone who knows electronics. And it was so good that I could do this thing I saw in the scientific paper. So the paper was published in 2023, and I haven't found anything out there from anyone else doing this or using it, like anything to make it available. So yeah, we've made it open source. So the instructions are up on GitHub. I think the components cost about £70 or something. And you could, if it's scaled up, it would probably be even cheaper to make. So yeah, that's all.
That was a coincidence. Hi, what a great talk. Thank you so much, Eilidh. Oh God, I launched it. Oh, there it is. Hey. This will work. Can you hear me? Yay. Okay. So I'm a research associate at Lancaster University in the northwest of England. Just finished my PhD. And thank you. We're not clapping for you guys coming in. And my research is around education with small people and physical computing. This project I've helped done with my colleague, Jan. She's a PhD student at Lancaster as well, and her research is around data and place. She's a data wrangler. But I'm here today with people from the Devices Lab in Lancaster, and they're in the room here now. These are some lovely photos of them all. You give us a wave, Lancaster. Whee! So there's a whole gang of us here today. Joe, I did. Joe was here, and then I panicked because I wanted to do something more insulting. And so the project, the one-handed keyboard, the origin story of it was all Jan's idea. So it wasn't as an accessibility thing. So she's doing a PhD in computer science. She's basically doing a sociology degree. She reads so many books, and so imagine like sitting in a cozy chair. She's got a book in one hand, and she wants to take notes. So normally she handwrites her notes, but then she has to go and type them up later. So it just takes up a lot of her time. So she wanted a small keyboard that she could fit on her little cozy chair that she could write with, she could type with, and skip that handwriting stage. And she did spend a long time looking for one-handed keyboards because she thought, there has to be, right? There has to be one-handed keyboards, but there just weren't. We talked to colleagues about this. We're like, oh, this is a brilliant idea. You know, let's do some research. Let's build a one-handed keyboard. And we got very negative response from a lot of our colleagues saying, oh, you know, keyboard research has been done. It's been done in the past. It's been done to death. You won't be able to publish in this area. We're like, oh, well, but that research hasn't made it to product. So I feel like maybe it's not been done to death. Maybe it could do with a bit more doing. And with many accessible devices, the reasons behind, you know, why don't one-handed keyboards exist is, you know, they're very niche. There's not a huge audience. So you can't mass produce millions of these because millions of people aren't going to buy them. Though I kind of disagree with that. It can be expensive, difficult to purchase, difficult to customize. I'll talk a bit later about who would want a one-handed keyboard besides my friend Jan. So yeah, as a maker and an electronics person, I thought I'd help her make. So this is attempt one. So I don't do PCB design, so I kind of followed a YouTube guide, and I don't know how to get PCBs made. So I made the PCB, and I'm like, I don't know how to get this to JLC. I don't know what all these options are. It's very confusing. So obviously I went the easier route and I milled it because that's easier. The next slide is a video of a miller making a very high-pitched squeal. So if you don't like that noise, you might want to cover your ears. It's this one. So this is our miller in our basement at home. Yay! So yeah, it's milling the keyboard. So it's a really slow, messy, toxic way to make PCBs. So that's how I made the first one. I'm happy for these to go around. Just don't put it in your bag. If you want to pass it around, have a look. It's a bit spiky because we left some of the pins open because I might want to add a screen. It was definitely a prototype, and that was the first one. So we wanted to make it customizable. So the idea behind the one-handed keyboard is you can't fit all the keys on it because it's not the same length as a normal keyboard. So you use layers, and this is quite common. We found in research as well as accessibility. You know, we all know what numlock is. When you press numlock, that means your numbers will be the keys that come up. It's the same idea with layers. So we have the left hand. There's T-R-E-W, if that was using the left-hand side of the keyboard. Not your left hand, you're using the left-hand side of the keyboard, and then you can switch between left and right. This was our first design. We were thinking about left-handed versus right-handed people. Maybe if you only had your right hand, you'd want to press enter with your thumb, so you might want enter over that side as well. So that was like our first design and our first prototype made by Jan, and that was the milling that we did. Sorry. That was the keycad design. So we left space for double keys, the enter keys and the space key, and using a Pico, a Raspberry Pi Pico as the brain. And that's like a really high bar to make something. You know, these are all the skills that you need to do that. You need to be able to make a PCB, do some milling, you have to solder the keycaps on. I wrote a little web page in JavaScript and HTML to map the keys to the letters. And you need a miller and you need soldering tools. So we're trying to make this easier for like other people to do. Version 2 I decided to learn how to send PCBs to PCB manufacturing companies. And so this is version 2, which is so much more lovely. We call it the Hollywood keyboard because I'm Lorraine Underwood and Jan is Jan Hollinshead. So it's just a pun. But it didn't really, so that's it there. It's coming around, but yeah, that's the keyboard. So it's got the Pico on top. It's got a NeoPixel RGB multicolored LED, so you can see what layer you're in. So we color the layers so you know what layer you're in. And that was me that's the keycaps are on it. This is the website then that I created for this page. So I've selected D on my custom keyboard, and I'm going to label that D, and that's going to type the letter D. You could use it as a shortcut thing, like a macro keyboard. So you could say, yours sincerely, and you could call that Y, so you remember that that's yours sincerely. So you could really kind of customize it, macro. You could have like shortcut keys. Print is this key, save is that key. And this web page lives on the Pico, so it's not like a web page on the internet. You plug your Pico into your computer, you open up the web page, and then you can customize your one-handed keyboard. And that's the idea behind it, is that it's completely customizable. Because we're like, when we kind of were told, oh, you shouldn't do this because research has been done, it kind of made us angry. And then like not finding accessible keyboards is like, oh my God, like how many people like don't have use of their left hand? Why aren't there accessible keyboards? So it just made us more angry. So we just kept going, making this product better and better and making it more customizable. Because like, very fortunate, I don't have any disabilities that prevent me from using my 2 hands. That doesn't say when I'm older that I might not chop off my finger with a miller, or I might like get arthritis in my thumb. So when, and I still want to use everything that I can use right now. So I think, yeah, accessibility kind of is terrible. We all know this. So making it completely customizable. So if I'm using this keyboard and I don't have the dexterity in this right thumb, I won't want to put these keys here. I might want to put them down here instead. So it's just making that customizable, personalizable as much as possible. And that was our goal. So it still needs a high amount of skills, though, to be able to do this. You just don't need the miller. And coincidentally, at the same time, the devices lab that I work with, the research team that I work with, are doing this project to make PCB creation easier. And it's kind of like a journey that they do. The project is called Replicate. And so we start off with a microbit, which is like a physical computing device, and we start adding prototypes to it. Oh, where did I put the things? Oh. Can I pass these around? Do we trust this audience? So if I go on to the next slide before I pass it around. So are things making it round? Have this side of the room gotten anything yet? Oh, we're there. Okay, we're getting there. So microbit is like a physical computing device. It's quite a lot of these in the world. It's for teaching children how to code. It's a very, very easy device to add accessories to. So one thing we made is modular hardware. This is called JackDack. So this is an LED ring, and you just plug it in there, and you can code it really quickly. That's a really very quick description of JackDack. And so that's like stage 1 is you make your prototype. So if I had my keyboard here, I'd have 5 keys along the JackDack adapters. The next stage is you open up your web tool, make a device. You can plug and play them, if you want to play around with them. And you add your buttons to your website. So this is make device. So you start adding in your modules, saying I want a scrolly thing, I want an LED screen. And it starts going through a phase of what we call flattening. So it takes our initial prototype, it then adds it to a custom board that we can screw down on, and then eventually ends up with PCB. So without ever opening up KiCad, I have made a PCB. And that's a huge thing for me, having no idea about KiCad. Such a kind of a high level of skill that you need to use these kind of tools, not just KiCad, EasyCAD, all the rest. So you go from your prototype to your PCB. And then those skills, like they shrink, right? You don't need PCB design, you don't need your miller. You don't need soldering because you can get the PCB company to solder for you, which I suppose I could have done in the version 2 as well. And you can program the microbit through a drag and drop block programming tool. So you don't need HTML or JavaScript web development skills. So your skills are they're just dropping, making it so much easier to do this. And this is version 3 then. So this is the make device version. So this is in just PCB, and then we have the pretty kind of case that we made for it. Okay, you get everything first. And we have these kind of keys where, you have the plastic see-through lid, so you can add your layers. It doesn't matter what your layers are, because you can print them out and you can start sticking them on. And that's like the story of the one-handed keyboard. One thing, I have an argument to settle with Jan. So QWERTY is the left-hand side of your keyboard. How does this work again? If you have your right hand, Q is your thumb. If you have 2 hands, Q is your little finger of your left hand, yes? So you don't have a left hand, Q should be the little finger of your right hand. No, exactly, right? We're saying no here. That's what Jan is saying. So it mirrors your hand. So if you don't have a left hand, and you've always pressed Q with your little finger, then surely you're going to press it with your right hand little finger. Agree? No one agrees.
Yes, I agree.
Oh, you agree? Okay. Yeah.
Because of key strokes, the number of times the keys happen, you're strong. I mean, it was typewriters, but the more dominant keys that you use more often.
Oh yeah, are in that location. Yeah. So Q shouldn't be in your index finger because we don't use Q that often. So it should be on your little finger. Oh damn! Yeah. That's a better explanation of why it's going QWERTY, YUOP. But it's customizable. So this is Jan's keyboard. This is not my keyboard because I have it the right way around. Yeah, we made the big keys bigger. Still a prototype though, because we're thinking actually maybe you don't have the strength to press 2 keys at once. If you don't have that strength, maybe 2 keys is a bad idea. Maybe if you wanted this key and this key to be space, they would just both be space. It doesn't matter which one you press. So if you don't have the dexterity in your thumb, it doesn't matter which one you press. You don't have to press the 2 together. You don't need that strength. We talk more and more about accessibility the more we made the keyboard. And that's kind of the end of my talk. We're talking about what next. We need to make decisions. Should I go with the replicate version or should I keep with my own version?
Just send you an email. I made a few prototypes.
Oh, great. Brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, we'll chat. Next things that I need to do is user testing. So Jan is a touch typer, so she's quite excited to get hold of the keyboard and just use it for like a week, a month as her normal keyboard. Right now it's USB, but we'd love to do it over Bluetooth. So you don't have to have the laptop on the floor, so you can do it mobile. The website needs a bit more finesse. Like maybe you could add 6 layers if you had more labels on the buttons. We haven't really thought about cost. This has been a real side project of ours. Like I said at the start, we're PhD students, but neither of us are working in this area of accessibility or keyboards. So this has like been a side project. Yes?
I have a question.
Sure.
Did you guys look in the US? They use stenotype machines for court reporters. Did you guys look at those?
Yeah, we wanted to kind of create a keyboard. So like if you've been typing your whole life on a QWERTY keyboard, instead of having to learn a new language or a new, like, because stenography is like symbols, isn't it? It's just giving people back the use of the normal keyboard that they're used to, but just in a different way. So it's kind of moving to how they now move rather than teaching them a new language. That was our idea, but I know what you mean, yeah. Like, because they are writing a lot of text quickly using one hand, or I think they use 2 hands. Yeah. Sure. So yeah, could we make this a product? That's more questions, yeah. Hi.
Have you thought of mixing it with predictive text? Do you remember those Nokia phones?
Yes.
Often had 3 or 4 letters. So instead of having to say whether you're left or right, you would just type away and software would
Yeah. I think this is going to be.
guess of which side you meant to be typing with.
Yeah. Because you're right. If you type these 4 letters, and you're not on the right layer, you're probably meant to be on this layer. So there's a lot of software that can guess what you were writing, using the layers as another added dimension of predictive text. Yes. Hi.
I actually made that. I have it. I'll show you.
Oh, this is amazing. The three of us will get together.
Let's save further questions for the panel.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'll be here after Phoenix. We'll chat as a panel. Thank you.
Definitely do keep those questions because we have like a whole hour to have conversations with you about our work. So cool. Yeah. Great. Can you guys hear me okay? Wonderful. I don't think is that me? Oh, cool. All right, awesome. Let's see if Keynote just does its thing. Yes. All right. Hi, everybody. Today I am going to discuss open hardware and how it empowers new forms of access, care, and joy through custom interface design using games as a guiding principle. My story begins in 1999 in a doctor's office in Silicon Valley. After seeing multiple specialists for cysts, I found myself in the room of a specialist MD who, in one sweeping breath in doctor tones, gave me a kind of terrifying diagnosis. He said I had permanent arm and spine damage and I might never work again. And from that moment on, he put me on disability leave. Kind of in a daze, I stumbled back to my Silicon Valley job and I walked in to tell our HR director what had just happened. And she revealed she had a chronic health condition to me. And she said something that kind of ignited a rebellion in me. She said, as a developer, the life you had is no longer possible without the full functioning of your arms. Her MD, my MD and her, my MD and my HR director had showed me that there was a really common underlying bias that they both shared. And their shared bias was a disabled life is a limited life. I just refused to accept that. The truth is that disability is not a limiting factor in human experience. Society creates disability. For those of you interested in this is called the social model of disability, and it is now where a lot of disability research scholarship is being done. At 24, learning that my life could possibly be filled with pain and that I might never work again or use a mouse, things could have really gone a different direction. And instead, I took it as an opportunity to reform my relationship with technology in a direction that was more exploratory. And I was interested in how technology could be personal, community-oriented, in service of human potential, regardless of the drive for mass commercialization. This is when I began hacking and building my own hardware in service of my creative practice. This is my first hack. Does anyone recognize this? No one. This is a video mixer from the 1990s. It's circuit bent, and I added all the knobs, painted it blue, put on new labels to help me understand things, and added some switches. And I just found the knobs much easier to grip onto at that time. I had a hard time getting my fingers to reliably hit buttons. So this made it much more accessible. They were also much more creative. So the limiting belief within mainstream technology kind of follows the logic of standardization, which bakes into it this assumption that technology should be mass replicatable. The most common commercial design caters to what Caroline Criado Perez described as one size fits men. It's more accurately stated that it is whoever holds the economic purchasing power in the market that company is trying to target at that point in time. Right now, in technology, that happens to be normative-bodied, cisgendered, white, affluent men in the prime of their economic, earning career. That will change. Even if you're in that category, which is a temporary category today, you won't be in it in 15 or 20 years. So 80% of everyone in this room will experience disability at some point in their lives. It behooves us all to begin thinking about disability as a larger category than we currently see it as a niche concern. So games offer a really powerful example of a field really ripe for new open source hardware and software design creativity. Game controllers, or the Xbox controller, to be really specific, was launched in 2001, and it became a locked-in design form for the medium. It was created at the time using a new kind of design methodology called user-centered design, and they released a white paper on it documenting the design process, which is kind of a fascinating read. Its vast success normalized game controller design to the point where the shape now extends into much of our military technology and drone technology. And the example on the far left is an Israeli tank being driven with an Xbox controller. How did this happen? It's because the Xbox was optimized for its release titles, which included Halo, which is a first-person shooter, and a couple racing games. It embodies a utilitarian design for shooting and quick movement. It also demands that players have 10 fingers, good hand-eye coordination, and 2 hands. Many mainstream games use what's called a dopamine design pattern, and it's created to follow the standard flow of B.F. Skinner's cognitive behavioralism. This is a stress-based system that's incredibly addictive with uncertain rewards. This design loop has extended into many fields and has formed the bedrock of much of our political, cultural, and social community today. It's most prominently seen in social media. We know it in design to be addictive, and it's used to cause endless scrolling behavior, and your brain is less likely to focus when you deal with this stuff. It makes your emotion and your cognitive processing worse. Are there other systems in the brain we could design with? Yes, we totally can. As designers, we can create engaging experiences that tap into our neurochemistry to not isolate or cause addiction, but to reconnect people to each other, to care, and to our collective sense of well-being. That's the opportunity before us. And this is called the tend and befriend response. It is another response to the stress cycle that we can use in design. I decided to explore what it would look like when I extended this into controller design. This is my game Bot Party, and it's a sound-based game using 3 DIY controllers with custom sensors that stimulates the release of oxytocin in the brain through skin-to-skin contact. Oxytocin is often called the love chemical. If you feel good after you hug someone or you high-five someone, this is why. We also know that mothers experience it when they nurse with their children, and it's a bonding hormone that draws connection between people. It's a really cool thing to work with. Bot Party uses touch game mechanics to invite collaboration and break social norms by encouraging to touch by encouraging people to touch each other 100 times in 3 minutes. Whether or not they can get through all 100 touches is debatable, but they do try, which is really exciting. Through my experience with Bot Party, over 3,000 people touched me during gameplay. As a designer, the impact on my perspective with society was really profound. I watched as people would overcome their phobia of touch. They would flirt with each other. I had a couple make out. I saw some dance games, and people were really collaborating really creatively to come up with strategies so they'd move their arms in certain positions to minimize the distance between skin contact in large groups. And this was so fun to experience. And after each exhibition, I noticed something really strange. I felt softer, kinder, and less affected by stress and social media for days after. Over the years, this experience gradually cultivated a unique kind of joy within me. This is what it looks like. You can play it in huge groups. Here's another shot of me playing with like 40 people. These are the design spaces that are really worth exploring right now that open hardware can really empower. Those 3,000 plus touches were 3,000 rewrites of what my neurochemistry could look like. And it subtly shifted my understanding towards other people in a more pro-social direction for hours. And I feel like years later, I still feel the effects when I look at these photos. And I loved this. This is the shot from GDC. And we had people like putting up little heart emojis with the controllers. And I've never seen a photo where people are frowning or upset playing Bot Party. And I keep waiting for it to happen. And I don't have a single one in any of the video documentation. So there are befriending opportunities that we can really empower through open hardware design. And my experience made me really curious because I was like, I designed for my own ability to play games, which doesn't involve like quick reflexes or even being able to kind of like move my thumbs or fingers a certain way. What are other disabled designers doing? How are they approaching design? And are there any commonalities between the different approaches? What are the possibilities? What methods are they using? To gain insight into this topic, I contacted 3 disabled designers I really respected, and I paired each of them with a hardware designer from the Alt Control game space, which is a game space that is specifically all focused around building weird controllers in completely non-standard ways, and then making video games with those controllers. It's very aligned to this community, and there is some crossover. Julia Makovic did a talk on it earlier today. I framed the collaboration as a game jam, and I asked them to create playful experiences they would enjoy. We conducted this study online over a summer asynchronously, allowing each team to work independently throughout the entire summer. While I can't go into really an extensive amount of depth on each project, I'm going to give a brief overview of what each team made. This is Cynthia. It was made by Julia, who's back there. It's a plush cat sound creation device with a speaker embedded in its tail, designed by Jade Hall-Smith. And it was designed to help Jade bond with her newborn baby who was still in her stomach, or in their stomach. They got pregnant during the process of being in my study, which made it ethically, I had to go through a whole lot of extra clearance to keep Jade in the study. But Jade was like, it's not fair to rip me out of this study because I'm really enjoying doing this. And I was like, can I get away with this? I asked the university, they're like, fill out these forms and we'll review it. And they let us do it, which was fantastic. And Jade really loved this project. They took it to the delivery room with them, which I thought was just the best thing ever. This is the Kettle Network. It's an abstract visualization tool made by Louise Hickman and Alistair Aitchison that allowed a community to form a temporary online space driven by how many cups of tea each person made during the day, which is awesome. And it created this sort of private space and shared community where emergent patterns could arrive that were formed through domestic activity. And I just found so much whimsy and love in it. This is the Tube controller. It was made by Sightless Combat and Robin Baumgarten. This controller allowed Sightless to play games with his dad that use sound and vibration, putting both players on equal footing, and that's a direct quote from him. He wanted something where his dad and him could play Pong, a simple game of Pong together without any visual input. So it was sound Pong. And it was really fun. It was just a cardboard tube. Crip game design is really an interesting space for me right now. This is another ridiculous controller I threw together in 15 minutes with tinfoil and copper tape. It's very easy to make fun, flexible controllers this way. And if folks in this room aren't familiar with the idea of what crip means, It's borrowed from the same kind of family of language that queering comes from, and it is a reclaiming of the term cripple. It isn't about overcoming disability. So crip design is something that's kind of arriving in the design space. And it's about designing with disability as an experience to value. It really looks at emergence, co-created access, complexity, and discomfort as a site for creativity. It moves in crip time and makes space for care. This approach to design differs from mainstream technological design because in big tech, we so often see disability as a problem to fix. As Louise Hickman really beautifully articulates, that's a very different approach than we're taking. What Louise calls this is disability-led design. After looking at my research, a clear pattern emerged in crip game design that doesn't consider access as the end of a process, but it starts from disability-led design. We don't modify the Xbox controller to be more accessible. We rethink the game and we rethink the device from the core. This shift is subtle but powerful. It decenters the designer as kind of a universal creator of objects for any person that then you have to modify or hack at. Instead, it roots the design in the specific temporal shifting space of now for a group of people. All these projects looked at local versus global design. The three outcomes created projects that allowed people to connect in their immediate environments to their communities, shifting away from universal products that tech generally creates. Could the most effective designs be the ones that might never work for large populations, but might excel at hyper-local groups? Designing for connection is another thing that I really think is interesting amongst all these projects. The time for creating work that connects people in small groups and local settings has arrived. The project in this study allows designers to bond, connect, and share experiences that act as a deepening of human connection. This was my favorite aspect of this study personally. It worked completely on crip time. Everybody moved at their own pace. Their deadlines were never hard and firm. We had all the flex in the world to collaborate in a soft and gentle way. And there's this myth that innovation is born from crunch and deadlines. None of these creators worked this way. Instead, they moved at their own energy levels and timeframes. Knowledge born through material engagement is another thing that you see only when you work with materials. If you did the workshop earlier this morning with clay, you could see that very obviously. When we think of interaction, the materials themselves actually transform our understanding of what's possible. Cool. So the biggest opportunity I see in open hardware right now lays in the direction of AI and how that's going to integrate into the devices in our everyday world. Open source hardware and software are going to provide disabled makers with options to build for themselves beyond the constraints of modern form factors. When we use open technology, we don't just change products, we shift the power dynamics, right? Small creator-driven data sets and open source algorithms running on open hardware devices have the potential to radically transform hardware and AI development through embedded AI. So if you guys, the top one is my open source machine learning library called InteractML. It runs in Unreal, super fast, real-time training. You can hook it up to game controllers in Unreal, or you can hook it up to anything that you can get serial into your computer with. The bottom one is even cooler because this is TinyML. It is embedding TensorFlow Lite, which is an open source machine learning platform from Google, onto the device itself. BBC Microbit is really pioneering some new work in this direction right now that's block oriented and no code. I highly recommend people check it out. And I really think disability driven design or disability led design stands to revolutionize how we embed hardware in the home. And I think that is one of its most exciting potential avenues for future development. It can create more joyful and connected lives. So that is something I'm very excited about. Disability-led design stands to revolutionize how we embed hardware into the home. And what I mean by that is the kettle was super creative. Louise had all these ideas. Louise is low hearing deaf. She has a cochlear. And she wanted to be able to play in really creative ways with her lighting and the things in her house. We saw that as well with Jade. They wanted to be able to interact in the home, in their personal communities with health technology that wasn't optimized for weight loss, but bonding and care. I'm really excited for this. Cool. So my whole career so far has been a manifesto. Improving technology can be personal, cultural shifting, and a source of growth and transformation. Technology is beyond the medium of being, the medium is the message. I think that technology is more significant than that. I think that technology is socially transformative, and it can really benefit human development. As technologists, we build society's future, and to me, that's an amazing thing to be able to think about. So disability-led design is a frontier for exploring human potential. Most folks who have a disability are used to living in a world that doesn't suit what they need it for. They become expert hackers and makers in their day-to-day lives. Cool. I am Phoenix Perry. I'm an artist and technologist and design researcher, and you can find me here. Cool? Awesome. Now we have panel discussion. It's going to be really fun. Okay, guys, y'all want to come back up?
Just like a couple ground rules, real quick. I'm here to kind of moderate the discussion going and whatnot.
Here you go.
Not a typical moderator that's going to ask the question. You will always ask the question. And as asking your questions, make sure you're keeping them responsible. There are a number of people in this room, so please make sure that you are only talking one end of the time. And please make sure that there is a question in your question. All right? Do you have a question on?
You can use a red box microphone.
Yeah,
For a friend.
we can try.
Yes. Woo. Yeah, just scroll it up.
Oh, just metro.
Excellent. Okay.
Great.
All right,
Nervous as fuck.
Sorry?
Nervous as fuck.
Yes? Does that work for you? Do you want to call on them and then I can run the microphone around? Or?
Okay.
Okay. Does that work for you?
Sure. I think you got the big mic. Say something.
Say something.
How about you?
Okay, can you hear me?
We're all good.
Oh, go straight to the back. Get those steps in.
That's right. Never skip Sunday.
So a question for, all you say about that question for doing the panelists' talks. I was wondering, Lorraine, see about your one-hand keyboard. Did you know that there was like QMK and other open source keyboard firmware already available, and there's already microcontrollers that sort of worked on that, and the HTML interface that was already sort of applications embedded in most Linux repositories that already managed to sort of program that? I was just wondering why it was sort of developed in-house.
Yeah, I did see, kind of almost like afterwards, I saw the QMK library. The problem, I think, like, the problem with a lot of these is documentation, and also it didn't run on a Pico. Like, yeah, it runs on a Linux environment, but Pico is not a full Linux environment. So it's like, oh, well, I've designed the PCB to fit the Pico, so I'm not going to change my hardware to fit the software. And I felt like the web page was really accessible. Like, it's really like clicking, it's quite simple. It's not Or like QMK has like APIs to it, but yeah, it's like, this already exists. Yeah, that does happen sometimes in projects.
Another question was about Felix's talk. I know that Microsoft had developed Xbox PC-centric accessible controllers, and I'm lucky that even though I have EDS and fibromyalgia and stuff, I'm still able to use those controllers. I'm wondering, because I haven't used those products specifically, are those products actually helping people who need to use them? Or is it just a form of PR stunt that makes Microsoft look good?
I can answer you one of two ways. I'm going to work out quickly if I can answer you honestly. Is this being recorded? It's being streamed? All right, okay, I'm going to answer, find me after. There are many folks involved in developing that controller. You might be interested in finding them to speak to them about what that process looked like. There was a lot of very impassioned work in that direction, but note that how it was designed was specific for like switch controllers. And what it effectively did was bring the cost of the switch controllers from 400 pounds to 100 pounds. But if you still think about it, there's no Xbox that ships with it by default. You have to pay an extra 100 pounds, which I would just call I jokingly call this the disability tax. And I've been paying it my whole life in the form of the enormous amount of stuff I do to not be completely destroyed. And all the stuff I buy I have like 15 input devices in my house. It's hilarious. Like I've bought all the input devices. And the thing with that controller is also, it did involve a lot of folks who were really impassioned in this space. I don't think they got to go as far as they may have wanted to go with it. It is an amazing first step, though, for big tech to do it. But why I cried when it came out, because why did it take 18 years?
Do you have any accessible devices in your home that you've been using?
Well, one of the things that's been really useful for me, so my field of vision is half, and I'm a software engineer. So the thing that's helped me most is to buy a square computer monitor. It's almost square, because people often share stuff landscape or screen share, so I can't go completely tall. so I can still see what people share with me, but I can make use of a good bit of height as well. So that's it's a commercially available thing with the selling point that you'd be able to look at two screens, one above the other. But for me, that's been the most useful thing.
Is it okay if I ask you questions?
Yeah.
I want to know all the weird things you've had to totally move around your house or change in some way to be able to compensate for the fact that you can't put the visual images together.
Well, actually, around my house, it's not too bad because I know where things are.
It's a familiar environment.
And had to compromise with the people in my household to be like,
keep it tidy.
The hard is people move around. So where there's stuff, I can scan around the room and see where they are. But where people are moving around, I'm like, I might walk into you.
Yes.
So,
do you have pets?
No.
No.
That's how I would train them.
No.
So when I'm cooking, I'm just in the kitchen by myself because otherwise I have to put a lot of effort into scanning to see where other people are. Apart from that, I haven't made a lot of differences.
I loved that as a sound palette, though.
Was that you?
I don't know, did I touch my mic or something?
I don't know. It could have been me. I'm really curious, though. So you said you built this. How accessible was there anything, obviously not like this in terms of what I found most frustrating is that the medical industry is so far behind thinking about how things in the human body can be improved. Like they've like, oh, you're ruined. Like after like a week, you're never going to be better. Like you were talking before this about how surprised your doctor was.
Yeah, they were really skeptical. So they had seen from recovery of the sight loss after
Mhm.
stroke, they expect recovery to happen in the first 6 months or never. And so when I tried to tell them about this device at first, they were like, don't buy anything. Someone's selling you something. It won't work. I'm like, no one's selling anything. Something I found. And I think it might work. It's worked in animal studies. It worked for the 2 patients in the study. This could be a thing that works because the brain can rewire itself. And I was very physically affected at first, and I've made a good recovery there from brain rewiring. And so I feel like there's the possibility for the sight to recover as well, which I've seen happen.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that go ahead. Oh,
No.
there was a series of you took a long pause and Lorraine jumped in, then I jumped in, and you came back. So what I'm really interested with this is because what I found is also that I've done way too much research in regrowing nerve endings, but you can also retrain the nerves you do have to pick up the functionality you've lost. It takes forever. It took me 18 years to be able to figure out how to do a wall push-up, for example. But eventually I managed to get my brain to put together the nerves I did have, the muscles that still were in good shape, and like rewire. And there seems to just be a lack of interest in the medical industry for that, because they can't sell you an easy product, you know?
Yeah, and there's this paper that's published and it got good results. And I emailed the people who did the paper, but I didn't hear back. And I know it's like in academia, people are moving on to the next funding thing, the next bit of research. So this thing's out there, but then I don't know what the process is to get it out to more people, apart from we've made it open source and I'm here talking about it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's anyone else in the world picking up this paper and moving it forwards commercially to get it out there.
That goes into something that I've seen so often in academic research, specifically around disability, is that academic research gets a lot of funding to focus on disability, but then they do stuff and they just abandon it and it goes into like ghostware, which is.
Sorry, did you?
Yeah, it's probably related to do you have any experience in finding the test users? So basically disabled users who want to test you, want to help you develop.
That's great. That's great question.
It was tricky. I was trying to find disabled people for one-handed keyboard, basically, especially injured Ukrainians in the war.
Oh, hey, it's you. I just recognized you. Didn't you do something really crazy with your diabetic system? Is that you?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. I met someone who did something like that. Never mind.
I did basically, I made after session.
Yeah.
Sure, but the barrier is that most of these disabled people, or freshly disabled people, right? They don't want to see themselves as test dummies.
Yeah.
Right.
Test subjects. I couldn't, basically, I had one colleague, but I mean, we know each other in person, and basically with him, we could experiment with new types of keyboards. Some random person on the internet who is disabled, they don't want to be the test subjects. Do you have any basically experience in that? Basically finding the right language.
Yeah. I mean, I think that what I've pulled from my own community, the disabled gamer community is pretty well connected because games people tend to be hyper online. But outside that, I've never even tried. So inside the disabled games space, tons of people. I don't know about anywhere else. How about you?
Yeah, like this is in my area of expertise, but like I do research with teachers, and so we're creating devices for teachers to use in the classroom. And what we do is we do like a co-design. So it's not like I'm an expert in creating hardware, not in teaching. You're the expert and like I think with this, it's just that connection. This is your disability. I don't know what you can and can't do. So let's try and build this together rather than like I've created a solution.
Exactly.
You haven't created a solution because it might not work for everyone. So I think like working with people is a way forward. You're saying about language, you don't want to insult anybody. You want to, so we call it like, if you look at co-design, it's quite well kind of run studies that people do with people to create items.
There's also participatory action research, which is another method. So, but that usually works with communities of practice and going in and essentially being there to help facilitate. There was a question in the back left corner. Oh, there was a question in the back left corner. Oh, okay, sorry.
The microphone.
So I'm gonna keep going.
Oh, okay, cool, sorry.
We'll come back to you.
There's two down here.
Cool. Sorry. I saw the back left corner a while back. Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, I'm aware of things like fonts, like the open dyslexic fonts. And also I have a friend who programs using voice commands.
Yes.
Wow, it's super cool. But I'm wondering if there is such a thing as like a programming language or environment that is specifically designed to be friendly.
I know that my partner knows the answer to this one. Anders, you had that? Yeah, there was he sent me a YouTube video of someone who had done like an extensive ton of voice research in Linux. But I don't know of a specific, if I was going to go look, I'd try and find that YouTube talk. I don't know of a specific operating system that is optimized for voice control, but I do know what it was like to hang out with Sightless Combat and watch, and it's a shift of modality, but he was born blind and he uses desktop technology and mobile technology way better than I do. Like he runs circles around me in terms of being able to listen to technology. He's so much faster than a sighted person. It is actually shocking. And I would be really interested to see what a voice operating system could look like, because I don't think you'd want it to operate at the speed of words per se. It would be really interesting to see what tonal control could look like, because it's just so much more effective and so fast. But I would love to see someone research that. Please, someone take a crack at that, because I had a very long, someone whose hands went in the height of the .com boom, I was trying drag and dictate and voice technology, and let me tell you, it is trash. I've done some voice to speech stuff. It's mid, it can learn. It's gotten a lot better. I can have a long conversation. I still use voice control, but Apple's accessibility design is incredible, and I use it all the time. So particularly, I really love the head pointing you can enable. I find that really useful.
So similar, I've heard of something similar with the clean light and the audio. It was called Dream Machine.
Oh yeah, Brian Geison's he made it. Yeah, it's in the Tate Modern right now.
And Murrayfield's Ice Rink in Edinburgh had the next exhibit where people came in. It's similar where you close your eyes and the strobing light hits your eyelids and you hear audio and you actually dream.
Okay, so there's a lot of research. Oh, what's your question before
I
I?
was just wanting to know if
Eilidh.
since it seems tangentially.
It is tangentially related. It's getting used right now in PTSD and trauma therapy. There's a whole form of cognitive behavioral therapy and research experimental psychology stuff that's looking specifically at light flashing and its connection to memory and where your eye position is in direct relationship to your memory recall. So they'll do things where they'll have light patterns and you'll look at them and then you'll go into kind of like a more altered or aware state. You can explore trauma stuff. So there's a ton of interesting trauma research in that direction.
Might be
interesting to see what the
Yeah,
light looks
yeah,
like
you.
when they set
Yeah.
up
Let's
and
talk
get
about
some
this.
ideas of how,
The flashing.
because if it's a light
Yeah.
that's facing your face, it's similar to what you've
Mhm.
built. So maybe they've got some ideas that you could copy.
That's really interesting. I
Yeah.
didn't know about this. and,
Oh, it's
I should
fascinating. Yeah.
Look
Awesome.
into it. Yeah, cool.
Thank you.
I have a friend who did it for PTSD, and I thought it was really fascinating. And then I did too much research.
Great. Great.
Howdy. I have a question, I guess looking at it from the academic side and then also the industry side. What incentives, compensation do you give or have you seen given to folks with disabilities to participate and to give up their time? I guess it kind of piggybacks on your comment to like want to participate.
Yeah, that's a whole sticky area of conversation. Anyone on this have a thought about that?
No, I haven't done studies. I've only done studies with teachers and like with teachers, it's just valuing people's time. It's a lot of time. It's also you kind of like we can't pay them directly, but it's we pay them with our experience. So if a teacher comes in and helps me plan something, I'll go to their school and run one of their lessons for them. So it's like a tit for tat system. So it's just when we're recruiting teachers, it's just valuing their time and giving them something not experimental, because you don't want to waste their time because it's so precious. But you are experimenting. It is research. So we always try and double it up with something solid. So like we'll teach you guys how to program, and then in the afternoon you'll test out this weird thing that we've made. So we try and like double up what we're giving to them, because we pay their school to release them, but that's not the teacher doesn't benefit from it. Well, they benefit, they don't have to look after children for a day.
That's supposed to be what they love.
That's it. I've not done studies.
In the industry, this is called an accessibility consult. There are different rates for this with different levels of expertise. Generally, this is actually in my research something that I found to be, on one hand, really beneficial, because a lot of people with disabled people actually really benefit from this financially. It becomes a real source of income, because they are experts in accessible technology, and they charge a premium to go in and work with a design agency to help them make something accessible. My entire presentation is a testament to why that doesn't work. These are experts in design. They need to be hired from the outset and brought into the design team to do disability-led design versus at the very end of the process. So in my research, I got a small grant, I paid people. Every one of the, did I pay you, Julia? Yeah. I did? Okay, I even paid the hardware designers. I did pay the disabled designers. It wasn't a ton, but it was a good chunk for academia, and I was proud to get any money or support at all. But that is called an accessibility consult in the field.
Here and then.
Yeah, so my question is about how your research overlaps with industry, or how you plan to make it overlap with industry. Because I feel like a lot of these frameworks, like Troup design, as well as the keyboard prototype that you're working on, and also I have an academic background myself, so I understand that sometimes you make a prototype and then it works, it might be good, but it sort of takes a while to actually get into people or to even permeate through the industry. So I was wondering about your processes. How do you see that happening? Are you making any connections with various industry stakeholders, and how do you, I guess, get it out there and make sure that people actually end up using it?
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the problem that I kind of stated, is that like industry didn't create this keyboard because they don't have an interest in it. But that doesn't mean that's completely true. One network that we're involved with is the Pro Squared network. They sponsor the chocolate. So they're a network of people trying to connect researchers and industry. So it's Pro Squared. It's getting the prototype to production.
Oh, that's great.
So it's trying to support
Pro
people.
Squared.
Through grants, and we were running a summer school in July of like training researchers of how you made this prototype, but you need to make 10, or you need to make 10 sturdy versions of this. How do you get it to production? So that's a network that I'm currently in, which could be interesting to a lot of people, I think.
I would love to know more about that. The other thing that I would say is really
interesting to me is the ways in which we could move beyond, like, because capitalism is in a death row. This is done, right? We're in a vestige state now of collapse, and something new is going to emerge. I don't know what it's going to look like yet, but I think some of those structures are more beneficial to this kind of work than others. I'd be really interested in seeing in 30 or 40 years if commercialization through standardization is still a thing. I think technology is going to become highly personal, and as that emerges, we're going to see new strategies and methods for what a marketplace looks like, right? So I think that my research really aligns well with post-growth economics, and I could see some economic alignment between these different methodologies in terms of what they're trying to achieve in the world. So it's a bigger picture thing than like trying to get, I ask companies to just give me money to come in and work with them or fund PhD students. You can also embed PhD students in companies. There are grants for that you can get. So that's another really powerful way, is if you can get a PhD position within a company. So if you have a PhD student at Microsoft, that becomes a really good road in.
Where's the... Oh, it's here again. Hello.
Hi. Yeah, I've got a cue. So we heard the stuff about, maybe we can get industry, maybe we can get businesses interested in making the thing. And I was thinking about Mr. Flashy EP, the Braille printer from yesterday.
Yeah.
I was thinking, what if industry says, nah?
Yeah.
What do the bottom-up kind of community, I don't know, hackspace oriented versions of this look like? How do we do it from the bottom up?
Yeah, that's like what the Make Device tool is. It's giving like PCB production in the hands of novices. So it's, you drag and drop, you create your PCB, you press print and it arrives. You've skipped industry. Besides the manufacturers, you're not buying this from a company, and you're customizing it. You've also skipped industry completely by making it yourself.
Yeah, we have just
like
made this ourselves. So but I feel like just putting the design online is really not going to reach many people who have any idea like me. So I don't know what he's made a couple more of these for other people I've met with this as well. But it's a bit tough to be just like a one-man industry.
Yeah.
Churning these out.
I think what's really interesting though is when you make technology like this, you can also license it through something like the Open Source Hardware Association. And that makes it a little more accessible because then it has a license and you can share it and publish it that way through Substack or whatever social media platform is the du jour of the day. And that kind of promotion does, if you set everything up right, lead to that kind of organic traction around people finding it. I think it really comes down to the people who made the technology to then disseminate that knowledge and that open sourcing of the process out into the world in a way that is accessible. And that is a burden in and of itself, because dumping it on GitHub won't do it.
It is quite an extra effort beyond to make good instructions for how to build it. So the code is relatively short and that's there. The build instructions are more complicated, and I think what he's also, it keeps coming up with simpler designs, finding components that clip together nicely. The first one you did, you soldered, and then you found that there's these connectors for LEDs, so that's nicer. Maybe we're still in the prototype stage, really.
Yeah.
Because what keeps finding ways to make it a bit simpler to
It's never perfect. It's never.
And I don't know if a PCB would mean that we didn't have so many components wired up, if that could possibly be a thing that could help. Yeah, I feel like I've lost track of the question.
No. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Andrew from Internet of Products. I've been thinking about how to scale up production of items, particularly in developing countries, and assistive technologies is an area that we're looking into at the moment. I think it's 1.3 billion people are living with disabilities today. 80% of them are in developing countries. Somewhat oddly, it's going to double.
Oh yeah, it's already doubling as climate crisis. Yeah. Yeah, that's coming.
By 2050.
Yeah.
And 80% of them, again, will be in developing countries. And most of them, because of the circumstances of their disability, will be living in extreme poverty as well as living in disability. So there is a distribution problem here. One of the definitions of a developing country, to my mind, oddly, is something you find that's common in most developing countries, is that there's very, very little supply of electronics. So anyone
I don't know if that's true.
To disability devices, I was working with UNICEF on some stuff in the fall, and they were putting digital readouts on things, and basically saying that means you can't make it here because you can't get the sensors, let alone the digital readouts, reading just basic components in the fall, without recovering it from e-waste. So I guess my question is, what do you think, and some of the questions taken up are, covered in the answers to the previous two brilliant questions. What do you think 2050 looks like for people living with disabilities? I love the idea that standardization isn't relevant anymore. I love the idea that post-growth economics isn't there anymore. But what does it look like for a person living with disabilities in the year 2050?
I mean, there are many, that's not very far away, like just for like speculation, like it's only 15 years and 15 years is not even a fraction of how long I've been working with this stuff. Well, it's a fraction, but it's not close to the total. I'm a lot older than I look. But the thing that I would say is that I am continually mind blown by what's going on in different developing countries where e-waste is being dumped and harvested. The level of hackery blows anything that's going on in the upper Western world completely out of the water. The other thing that I've seen is it leads to a level of innovation which is by default disability-led design. It's not a high scope idea. I think that as the world continues to shift, I think 2050 is short-term enough out that I think we're going to still be tail end, if not still full-blown crisis era before we manage to pull it together. If we manage to pull it together, we don't just go into a death spiral. I'm all for Team Humanity, pull it together. But I think in 2050, you're going to see a lot of ingenuity, a lot of hacking, a lot of working with the materials that are available in the context which you are operating within. And I would say that I am really, as like a middle-aged, white, Western, I'm not the right person to be answering this question, but I do look at other hackers, and there are examples of like the incubator project that came out of India, for example, of people working with the technology where they're positioned. And that's going to be transformative. And as we see more, deployed and failed deployed military technology, I wouldn't be surprised if you see people capturing drones to harvest them. Stuff like that.
I just say that I'm really obsessed with this microphone.
It's going in your bag.
I have been struggling, as many people have talked about, to like consolidate my feelings about the general shift towards shoving AI into everything. I know it's mentioned as something that you have run as a financial compute context sitting controllers, and I'm super curious about how that works, but it makes sense. I guess part of what sort of helps to make me think differently about the subject was that I recently spoke to someone who was like nonverbal and had created his own sort of assistive speech tool that like used OpenAI APIs.
Awesome.
To help, like, predict what he was going to say next.
Yeah, that's sick.
Trusted it enough that he was really excited to show it to me.
Yep.
I guess that it was hard to square in my mind with my understanding of the current state of the Gen AI LLM market, and I'm wondering like what are the intermediate steps that people are using to build enabling technology that does not like delegate agency to Sam Altman or Elon Musk?
I have a lot of thoughts as someone who has been using AI and developing with AI since 2012. AI, and I don't understate this, it needs to be renamed. It is a huge field of study. Machine learning is what I'm going to focus on here. I'm going to specifically focus on supervised machine learning. And I'm going to focus on supervised machine learning that uses small data sets. And that's what I said in my talk, but I think I glazed over. The potential here is radical for transforming interactions on chip. We see it with algorithms like K-nearest neighbor. We see it in small neural networks that are running with very few examples. Like we're talking like 70, 80 examples can give you good recognition for like numbers. You just need all the different ways you can draw for, that you draw for. Not that everybody in the world draws the number 4, but how you draw for. And that kind of specificity is incredibly powerful. And beyond that, I think that the AI is gonna end the world. Oh my God. They're wanting you to look away from the real problem in the room, which is regulation. We need, as a society, to be focusing on how we're going to regulate this technology, and they're confusing you, and it is a smoke and mirror show to get you to pay attention to, oh my God, general artificial intelligence, no LLM. I'm gonna state this emphatically. No LLM is gonna become a sentient being. That is what large language models in multi-dimensional space does. If we think of LLMs as statistical analysis and probability, and Sam Altman, and okay, all right, these guys is anyone here read the Watchmen comics? Right? They are Ozymandias. Like, I'm not gonna joke about that. But there'll always be an Ozymandias in the room. There'll always be the new technology. It was before, and AI is going to transform culture far more extensively than the internet, whether you want it to or not. So the question is looking for the opportunities and ways to apply justice towards it. And small data sets running on open source algorithms that are completely outside of the control, like InteractML is not based on TensorFlow. It's based on a small collection of algorithms that we developed in an open source way called RapidLib that was an Horizon 2020 project. These algorithms are out there and they can be rolled into tons of stuff. K-nearest neighbor from the ground up, which is a really powerful machine learning algorithm, can be coded to fit on an Arduino, and I have done it. So we don't need to worry that AI is going to come and, robots walking around that are sentient is not happening in your lifetime, if ever. And why would we want that? Why do we want robot? So I think it's really important to kill the AI hype down and look at what is actually going on today, right now in our culture. And that is, the tech billionaires attempting and failing because, Trump is a complete unpredictable monster. But attempting to heavily influence big technology is no different than what was going on with Henry Ford, right? Also, I have a really good paper on small data you can check out. If you Google me plus small data, you'll get my paper on small data and the opportunities it presents for creatives. Sorry, AI, way too much. Side note.
There's a question that what you just said made me think about this, and this is free for anyone to take, so develop it if you want. Would it be possible, do you think, to develop a small open hardware device that is essentially a resistant touch pen to help people make notes like how the Apple Pencil does? For someone to run like a small machine learning algorithm to detect how they write instead of what it normally writes, help them make notes in a way that's legible, essentially.
What, like it would push your finger?
But not like a small sort of like a pad with a little pen.
Oh God, you can just do it with a Wacom. You don't need InteractML, there's a slide I didn't show, but if you watch the InteractML video, we do it with a Wacom tablet. You just need something that gets input into the computer in any way. It doesn't care what it's using. You could use a Wacom. That's the easiest way to do it. For real. For real. That would be great. I had to switch hands when I was a kid. My handwriting is, whew.
Hi there, it's Andrew again, sorry.
Mhm.
Follow-up question on the previous question about industry and nationalism. A short version of the question, I guess, is how much would you charge for your devices that you presented here today? The second, the more elaborate version is that having just come from the medical devices panel, and it's an area that I genuinely haven't been able to find any good data on. I'm a believer and advocate in open hardware. I'm going to caveat what I'm saying with that. What difference to the price does intellectual property make for assistive devices, assistive technologies today? Is there, is intellectual property 40% of the cost of a mass manufactured wheelchair? Or is it 0% or 90%? Or, so I'm curious about to what extent, as I have been advocating for, assistive technology should be open source in terms of the price, therefore the availability and accessibility of open hardware for people with disabilities.
Okay, you want?
Should we start? Do you want to say answer the first question about what would you price?
Well, okay, so to the second question, I've got no idea what.
Yeah. There are like 3 questions there.
I mean, I think the cost of components is about £70 and coming down to maybe 50, but then there's the labour is the main thing and the time to make it. So I don't know, I don't really see us doing it for the money, but so much as to get it out there for people to use, but then that doesn't scale. And I don't know if a commercial company is going to be interested in it or what it would take. I don't know if that paper is enough evidence. They had 2 people who got some of their sight back.
3.
But so would the NHS be interested? Would opticians have it in their places? I really still don't know what it takes for it to be commercially viable and for people to be out there using it. So, yeah.
I think the goal with where I work and all the networks that I work with is we're trying to democratize access to technology through tools. So we're not looking to sell anything. We're just looking to create free open access tools for people to create their own technologies. And then it's up to the manufacturers to charge what they'll, to charge what they want to charge. And then it's up to people to license their ideas. So yeah, I think we're very lucky to work in research where we don't have to worry about profit or money. I'm lying, we do have to worry about money, but.
Yeah, I can give a concrete example. The Switch controllers that people were using to make video game controllers, the cheapest one of those pre the Xbox, and Xbox is a really good example of mass manufacture, right? It was if memory serves, $499 USD. And the one person who was holding on to the control of that intellectual property and putting that game controller, it was extremely expensive device. No one could afford it. Whereas when Xbox got involved, it came way, way down. But it's still not the same cost as a regular joystick. And it could be Xbox has the money to just eat some of that or absorb some of that. Or just ship it and charge a little bit more. Like I think that making an add-on sends a message. That is one example that I know for Switch controller systems. And I've had that brought back to me when I said, oh, well, Xbox didn't make this standard, blah, blah, blah. People are like, but they brought the price way down. So I think it's a hard one because you want people to make this stuff. You want people to benefit from making this stuff. But at the same time, the disability tax is real. And we go back to government. We need laws. We need support. We need things like the equivalent of access to work for devices, right?
Given you guys know me, I'm John, I work with Lorraine as well,
Mhm.
University. Sort of more a comment on that as well, but also like to hear your thoughts on it. I found when I was looking at some of the access bit, which some folks you will know, which is a device to connect switches directly to microbits. The devices closer to people got more of the critical tax. So like the component cost for a switch, which is literally like a socket and a button, would have
ADP.
like 1,000%
Exactly.
backup.
Yeah.
And there didn't seem to be any reason why. Like if you go buy a commercial one, it's literally just a switch in a box with some actuator.
Yeah.
And it would be like $200
Exactly.
or something. And that must cost them about, $1 in parts.
Yeah.
So I guess like as a comment to that, but also what are your thoughts on like that? Because I find like the closer it seemed to get to the actual person, the worse it got.
So
It's true.
Why is that? Do we know why that is? Like
Capitalism. 1, 2, 3. I just think there's not a lot of competition, right?
Yeah.
So it's capitalism, and also a lot of this comes down to what insurance companies will pay for. So if you, for example, you've got a wheelchair, I have a friend who had a startup called Hack on Wheels, which is about wheelchair modification, and I had a long conversation with her about what it took to get some of the hacks and mods covered by insurance. It's like a completely different beast. And I think the United States, with its model of like, just look at drugs in the UK, they're a fraction of what they are in the US. But when the American market sets the standard for so much of the pricing in terms of the medical industry, you get this crazy stuff like a switch. It's like the Pentagon mint that cost $50,000 or whatever, it's that same problem just with insurance, I think. I can't quote this, but my guess is medical industry. What do you think?
No, that's why I just wonder. I had no idea. Like,
if
it's closer to the body, it's got more. It's more like
health and safety.
Yeah, health and safety.
Yeah.
So, but it's not made to be health and safety. It's a plastic switch. It's not like it's made for skin or anything like that. It's just a plastic switch. Yeah.
Back to game controllers. There is an open source project using RP2040. You can simulate full Xbox controller with RP2040 and basically switches or joysticks, whatever you connect to. And it basically costs like nothing. So people are actually already given the tools to do it. But most of the users don't have the ability to build systems.
Yeah.
So
there's really great projects like Caleb Craft's project. Caleb has a project around, it's a community of, is there a question in the back? I feel like I saw a hand. No? There is a community, can anybody remember, I know it off the top of my head, I've talked too much. Does anyone remember Caleb's project name? The Controller Project, thank you. The Controller Project. That's a whole community of folks who've done mods for game controllers. There's a huge kind of pull from, I think what goes back to sort of the stuff that I'm talking about is that I want to just stress this, disabled people are expert hackers. They have to be, they don't have a choice. And a lot of the hacks they do are incredibly interesting. That's who was asking a question, back there in the corner. Oh, it's okay.
I'm really interested in repair as well,
Yeah.
especially in terms of the affordability aspect, longevity.
Uh-huh.
And it seems like medical and body adjacent devices have this specific challenge of durability and resistance to sweat and heat and sort of like and UV and other stuff like body-wise, and the balance of that with the ability to take something apart and repair it, but you can't necessarily seal it as well. I'm curious about any projects that you think handle this very well, this tension between resisting all the elements and still being repairable.
God, that's good. repairable. It's interesting because I had some blood sugar issues for a while, and I was wearing a patch for testing my blood sugar on a regular basis. And that had an enormous amount of circuitry in it. And you have to rebuy these things every like 2 weeks, which is ridiculous. And my entire time of having that, because it goes in it's a needle that sits inside your arm. I was curious, like, is there a way that I could just change the needle out? Why do I need to buy this every 2 weeks? But that is an example of something it's completely, it would take an open source project. Can you think of anything?
No, I can't. Sorry.
God, could you imagine? I mean, the danger there's bananas though. Like if you have like something like a pacemaker and repairability, talk about a high stakes patch. Like, oh my God.
I've got an example of the opposite, which is I've heard of a retinal implant. So it goes in your eye and transmits the light signal to the brain. Amazingly cool. And then it's just gone out of support. And
oh Jesus. So then you've got
the company's not there, you've got something there, it doesn't work. It's horrendous.
Exoskeletons.
What do you do? What do you do?
Firmware updates for insulin pumps in the UK.
Yeah, you said that, yeah.
So like I have a hacker friend who has a pump. He has like a 13-year-old device. And he's like, I could hack it. Like I could sniff it. I could do all kinds of things with this. And like I'm walking around with this, like I'm really vulnerable. And that's part of the openness.
But the security too, yeah.
Yeah.
The security, that's it.
But that community, some of those folks need that. You buy secondhand, you want the old firmware because then you can run your own application, and the new ones don't let you do that, right? So
yeah. I mean, I've seen. Okay.
Yeah.
But that goes back to like people who have non-standard experiences of health technology are really the best people positioned to really overhaul that. That's where it's so exciting.
So the question is the intersection of standardization and regulation.
Oh God.
Thinking as a kind of maintainer of some software projects, it can sometimes be really handy, like if someone's reporting a problem, to know that they have a relatively standard kind of setup and system just to be able to replicate that, debug it. Can you think of any examples of sort of regulation anywhere in the world where there is required standardization, but it's also inclusive of accessible teams?
Oh my God, it's such a good question. I feel like the retinal implant you were talking about is a really good example. I bet that thing had to be cleared through a ton of standard like screening tests and stuff. What does it take does anyone here know what it takes to get an implant approved for medical implantation? I'd be really curious.
Need some doctors.
Huh?
The previous panel.
Oh, the previous panel. Is anybody in here from the previous panel? Give us.
Well, they just said that it was a lot.
It was a lot.
They didn't really go into what it was, but so much. And then their thing was to be producing modular components that were tested and approved and people could use in different ways. But they'd be approved for, well, implant is the hardest and they were going for it.
Yeah.
But then the people after them had some, I don't know, UV or infrared things that would sit outside you. But yeah, having them not necessarily approved for any particular use, but just going through the safety thing. Can it be sterilized?
Yeah,
Can it
right.
be,
So this modular thing
is it safe with your
approved?
biological, it's interacting okay with your system? So it can be all these different layers of approval. So much, and that's definitely a barrier.
But having it modular though could be like, that's probably the solution they've come across, is that this bit is approved.
Yeah,
and
so
then,
this is approved for these things. So it's safe to go in your body, and then there'll be another layer as people say get approved for a particular use.
And that could add to the repairability of it, because if you can take one bit out, at least you could repair that.
Exactly.
Yeah, or just replace one bit because of the power supply and the interconnect them. The controller as separate pieces.
Yeah. Unlike our phones with the batteries embedded in.
Yeah, so that would be more maintainable as well.
That's going to be an interesting problem in the future, right? That's going to be like a future problem. Like, how do you hack your implant? Like, that might be something that, in the OSHW 2070 has to deal with. Oh my God, that's so cool. Really?
Well, so yeah, I'm just really briefly, so with this software initiative that we're doing, I had thought we would be doing things on the outside of the body. I didn't think in a million years anybody would want to open source valuable. And the National Institute of Health actually came to us from in the US, big government organization that does a bunch of health things, and said, we have a problem with the, we need open source software, hardware, and implantable medical devices because companies go out of business and then we don't have the source anymore. And so the doctors can't even access devices that are in people. So your only option is another surgery to replace it with another device that may or may not go out of business. And so the advent of so many startups doing medical things, they keep running into this problem.
Wow, that's so fascinating.
Yeah. And also IP doesn't necessarily mean that it's a hackable or not hackable device, or a secure or not secure device, or et cetera, et cetera. Like, I mean, Boston Scientific is getting sued right now for some spinal thing, and a couple of years back, they had a pacemaker that needed a firmware update, right? Because it was on the fritz and whatnot. So like, these things happen even in closed software or closed hardware medical devices. It's not, it doesn't really necessarily have to do with the IP, but I would argue that open source can always make it easier to repair and to fix and to understand.
That feels like something that would really be a good law to try and like get passed, or a regulation that if a company is going to make an implant, if they go out of business, they're legally required.
I would love that.
That feels like a really
common sense
needed law.
Even if it's commercial, or at least open.
If it goes in,
going in.
So, this is awesome.
All right.
But we do have to be out of building by 6.
Oh,
So please, swing by. First of all, let's thank our presenters.
Thanks, everyone.